Hello, and welcome to the second edition of Conférence Pour Le Brésil. Antes de começarmos, gostaríamos de lembrar ao nosso público que o painel com o áudio em inglês ao vivo está disponível no nosso canal do YouTube. My name is Isabella Vieira, and I'm a master's degree student of Science Po and coordinator of the communication team of Conférence Pour Le Brésil. On behalf of the organizing team, we would like to thank everybody for being with us in the panel on the environment, obstacles to the Brazilian sustainable development and its implications in the international scenario. This conference is organized by students and alumni of Science Po Paris, and its theme is inequalities and post-COVID reconstruction, perspectives for Brazil. We had 6 panels, 20 speakers along 2 weeks. In addition to the relentless and voluntary work of our team, we would like to thank our partners, VA Estudiant, Science Po's Political Observatory for Latin America and the Caribbean, Tuzini Freire Advogados, Educalibras, Dado Points, and Headline for allowing us to create a free online event with simultaneous translations into English, Portuguese, and Brazilian Sign Language. Before we start, we would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for being with us in the 6 days of event and invite you to watch the end of the panel to watch the musical performance by Tuyo Group. I would like to hand the floor over to Felipe Milanez, who will present the theme of the panel and our guests. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, depending on where you are. I wish you a happy Sunday, a very special Sunday. We'll have the Saint João and Xangô in Bahia in Brazil. It's an honor for me to be here in this panel, and I would like to thank the organizers of this panel, the students of Science Po who have organized and mobilized to debate Brazil's situation in the world today. We are living especially intense and turbulent days, very hard days, but filled with hopes of changing this tragic scenario of a growing authoritarianism. It's an honor for me to mediate a debate between 2 wonderful people who have a history of fight for years, and with a past that helps us imagine several different futures if we get organized and imagine changes. Angela Mendes is a social environmental activist. She lives in the state of Acre in the forest. She fights along the young people, mobilizing them in the state of Acre, helping them believe in another future in the forests, teaching them to live, to believe in the forest. She's the daughter of Chico Mendes. He was a person who changed how the humanity saw the forest. And he built an alliance in the 80s that was very subversive and current, which is the Alliance of the Peoples of the Forest. And we have Ailton Krenak. He's a brilliant indigenous leader. He is the greatest intellectual in Brazil here, according to the Brazilian Union of Writers, and also according to many other students. He is a person who comes from the basin of River Doce. He's a very special person. He sees that humanity has been trapped in the hands of this virus because of its own doing. It has the pandemics have terrible effects, and this is all a result of the actions of the people. And here in Brazil, the situation is even more serious because of the fascism and authoritative actions of our government. Our president is always defending or fighting against our indigenous populations, and it's very terrible positions in all areas. Ailton has had several books and helps us imagine other worlds and fight against trying to postpone the end of the world, as he says in his book. His book has been launched by Companhia das Letras, gained many awards. We have other books based on things he said in Portugal and everything. And the characteristics of this book are based on orally told stories and gathers different publics, audiences. Since he spoke in Portugal and wrote it in Brazil, the book has been published in 4 different languages. And for our audience, I'd like to mention the version in English called Ideas to Postpone the End of the World. And also we have, and the book has also been launched in French, and it should be in Science Post curriculum, debating the ecology and indigenous populations beyond development. In the last few decades, we had an opposition to what would be a predatory development. What we see in the last few years is a deterioration or a dissolution of this idea. And they're trying to replace it with more radical ideas. We also have more radical or innovative ideas, which is the ideas fighting for the good life. So I'd like to recommend a book called Cartas para o Bem Viver, in a free translation, Letters for the Good Life, and another text by Krenak for talking about people who sing and dance, and thinking of living and a good life. I would like to call Ailton and Ngela. I would like to say hello to you. Thank you for being with us. Thank your family for allowing us to listen to you on this Sunday. The first question I want to ask the both of you, and I would like Ngela to start answering. In such a difficult scenario we're living in, from your perspective and where you are, how you see the forests from Acre and from the basin of River Doce, what does the nature and the forest say to you, and how can we get organized to change the scenario we're living in? What's your perspective regarding this oppression, and how do you see the horizon in the future? Good morning, all of you. I would like to start. Thank you for inviting me. Thank all the students of Science Po Paris who have organized this conference, and thank you for the opportunity for being here again, sharing the same space, even if it's a virtual space, with Ailton Krenak. He is a person I really admired for all his history, and a person who has brought some light during this time with his writings, his publications, which really inspire us. And you too, Felipe, you have also allowed us to be here, since you were the bridge who connected all of us here. So today, here, we're in the state of Acre. We have a 2-hour time difference from Brasilia, which is the center of our world. And it is also from the place where Ailton is. It's 9 o'clock a.m. for me here, and I have a beautiful sun uh, beyond my window, and I see everything moving around me.
This period we are living in, it's the transition between the summer and the winter here in the Amazon region. We are moving from the natural floods period that happened in the Amazon during this period and entering this period of drought and very little rain. So here we do not have 4 seasons. We definitely have 2 seasons with sun and with rain, with a lot of sun but little rain. So we are leaving this intense heat and entering this period in which there are fires because deforestation is already there. And we are going to enter this period in which what is left is going to get burned. What is not used by the loggers are is going to definitely going to be burned. So we are working with extremes here. And this is according to the report from Comissão Pastoral da Terra, what we're living today is a moment of a lot of conflicts for land owning, and it's increasing at alarming rates. And on the other side, the climate specialists, they already say that more and more we are getting close to that point of no return. Although we may start to diminish the impact of our actions, it is probably not going to be possible. And it all comes to the Amazon factor because the report says that for land conflicts, uh, the Amazon has the worst indexes. And this happens for this one single reason, which is the degradation and the endless dispute for land. And it is it's tiresome, it's stressful that we do not have numbers that point us to another direction. More and more, Brazil is advancing and with an increase in conflict and land owning conflicts and all forms of degradation. And but the Amazon is the biome that is most threatened and the one that generates conflicts the most. If you think of the populations, the peoples that suffer the most, these are the indigenous peoples and the Quilombola people from the Quilombos. And it also shows that we are going against the logical way of life, living with empathy, equality, and justice, and social justice and climate justice. We are going against all that. So, so I think it was just last week, right? There was this one thing that we could celebrate because Minister Salles has finally left his position, but he should be going to jail instead of leaving his that ministry. Of course, we were celebrating that a lot, but someone probably worse than him is now in the Ministry of Health. So, yes, are you calling me? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you, Angela. Yes, it's all doing great. Okay, I just had a freezing screen for a moment. Okay, from where I stand, what I see is that there is a possibility for reversion, of course. We can revert this. There is no everlasting evil. So I think it is possible because we are working like ants in our space, and we are trying to rethink the purpose of our life on earth. And if we start from that, we will be able to postpone the end of the world. Otherwise, our future is just downhill. So let's try to think and have this self reflection on what our purpose on earth is, so that we can have a chance of having a possible planet, a possible future, and that this planet is more and more welcoming and fair. Thank you, Angela. Ailton, please. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Felipe. Good morning to everyone who is here on this Sunday. Those who are cheering us up with this with your presence. Thank you, Angela, for bringing this point of view in regard to the region where you are talking from, talking about the rain and the drought. And you got me thinking, Angela, on this description of the where you live, when you mentioned that even though the logging companies are going to stop, have probably worked their way on the land and left something standing, but still it's going to be burned. And I think it constitutes a technology of measuring of all the fires that we have. Every year we are alerted on the increase of deforestation and fires in our forest regions. And it takes the uh, biome Amazon as the model for this analysis, but it also reflects what happens in other ecosystems in Pantanal or Mata Atlântica. I am in the eastern region of Minas Gerais state, and it feels like we live in two different countries. Someone who's in Europe may probably not understand that we are just a few hours of flight away from Chapuri to Resplendor, for example. We travel a full day using cars and planes to get to meet each other. It's probably something similar to crossing the whole Europe so that we could have some coffee together. So this is just so alarming. Look at this. It's the same. We live in a continental country with so various seasons, but administered in a very monolithical way. And it results in a violence against all the ecosystems that we have. And it generates some confusion, some internal cultural confusion. People who live in the southeastern region of Brazil, sometimes they feel bad that in a crisis like this, that we do not stand all together and fight for the Amazon with a public function towards the safety of the Amazon. Oh, I heard someone saying that the Mata Atlântica, the Atlantic forest, is being devastated. How come you only talk about the Amazon and you just disregard the Atlantic forest? You need to understand that Brazil shares with the Amazon basin. We share this with Bolivia and Colombia. our neighbors. We have around 8 or 9 member countries that share the Amazonic Park, and it has to be governed in a shared fashion with all these countries, with the participation of these peoples who take care of this ecosystem and promotes life, this life production that Angela has transcended from her geographical perspective. As and just as a reminder that we have to think of life on Earth, life on this planet. These regionalisms that configurates the governance in the world, they are causing a lot of harm and damage. Right now, we are going through an abusive governance of a government that abuses of society, but uh, they challenge the territory. It's just as if locally we are living a foreign invasion. People who lived in Europe had some experience in the last century, armed conflicts, First and Second War, and they know what an enemy occupation means. Brazil is living an enemy occupation, so that you have an idea. Everyone in public positions, they are acting against common interests and challenging the natural structure of the country. Our dearest Eduardo Viveiros de Castro once said that the first infrastructure of a country should be its territory. And before any other technological artifact or apparatus, the first structure is the territory. So, in this sense, your father, Angela, Chico, with all of his sensitivity and all he knew about richness, he understood that the natural forest and the way of living of these populations, that is the treasure. That is the treasure, definitely, because we don't have to go in search for promises of development. This dynamic that the world around us is imprinting to anyone. Our dearest Felipe has just presented a proposal for our dialogue because he wanted to ask what we are seeing around us. So what we see, in fact, is a dynamics that's been instituted by capitalism that does not allow a country like Brazil to make any choices as a country. And Brazil, considering its size, and it's just considered as big as a continent, it does not have the freedom of choice. That motto, equality, fraternity, and liberty, it cannot be freely exercised here because we are submitted to a global capitalist logic. We are living this internally. Our society is poor and we are struggling, but the companies are making money. Alarmingly, in this period in Brazil, it is amazing when you see the financial reports, the banks are making money as never before. And the companies that operate in Brazil, especially the corporations, they are uh, they are accumulating a lot of money. So it's just so crazy. We have a country that is being devastated and our population is impoverishing. The poverty has increased in Brazil at alarming rates. We have more than 30 million families in the line of poverty, and some of them getting there to that condition of starving very fastly. I am shocked to know that we have an increase in the number of families who are starving on a daily basis. 10 years, 20 years later, Brazil had managed to overcome the absolute poverty, and we had gotten to a place in the map of absolute hunger. We were banned from that map. We are now dealing with people who are definitely starving when the Ministry of Economy is just saying that he is proud that Brazil is probably part of the center of the world. So we are being harmed by this capitalism um, that they want us to make sense from, but we can't. Do you think other countries have that right of choosing? When we are an exception, we are a country that has a lot of natural resources that could promote a very dignified life to everyone. We are all the time involved in scams and in bad intentions, and it's determining for the type of life that the people share from a political and cultural point of view.
I think all of that is extremely related to climate changes, to the internal social environmental situation of Brazil, and it has to do with an agenda with our neighbors, like Colombia, and those who are live outside of our country probably think, why is such a society always alarmingly uh, living with very poor situations for the people in its country? Europe is going through a dilemma regarding refugees. Here in Brazil, we have another social experience providing we could be providing better quality of life and greater well-being to our population, and not be in this very narrow corridor where the economic refugees have to uh, run away to get some quality of living. We are on the other side of the Atlantic regarding Europe, and we all need to look at the Earth and say, like the astronauts who said the Earth is blue, it is so beautiful to imagine that the forests are green, the Earth is blue, and we could have such a better life if we could share the riches of the world and not its bad aspects. We seem to be able to share misery and have a lot of difficulty sharing riches. Today is Sunday, and I want to send my regards to all of you out there who are able to celebrate such a beautiful day. As beautiful as Earth is when you look at it from space. Thank you very much, Ailton, Angela, for such beautiful words, such ideas that you bring for our debate. I will soon bring you questions from the audience, but I think you brought such important elements regarding the reality in political and environmental aspects here nowadays. And at the same time, you brought up very important issues regarding the consciousness of awareness of being in Earth. There's a book written by Ailton called Encontros, meetings, where they debate the foundation of the Union of the People of the Forest. And this is bringing together people who had been fighting for many times. Uh, those who work in the forests started debating and getting together with our indigenous population. And they came together because between them, they had the boss that pulled them apart and pulled it. They learned those who work in the forest and make their living out of the forest learn to live along the local population because they learned that both the rubber farmers and the indigenous population need the forest to be alive. We have several institutions and pension funds in Europe, in Holland, and other countries who invest in deforestation in states in Brazil, in Rondônia, in Acre. And what we see is that the well-being of some people comes from the misery of others. This is due to the lack of consciousness. And we need to come to the awareness that the destruction will affect everybody. In the conference of climate, this is a debate that is present. I think that this is something that is debated frequently at Science Po. It's debated between the elites in Europe. They are debating sustainable development, even if it seems like our planet is pushing us out. So what can we imagine to try to overcome capitalism? This dichotomy between cities and the forests. If we have sustainable cities, or can we have sustainable cities when you think of all the fires that will be coming in the forest? How can we think of well-being in sustainable cities in Europe when this well-being is based on the fires they set up in the Amazon? So we need, in foreign relations, we need to defend ecology as something intrinsic to our common survival in Earth. Angela, Ailton, who is this question directed to? You can start again, Angela, and then Ailton can say, so if you can think of alliances and also regarding your work with young people. Okay, I would also like to reclaim something Ailton mentioned, which is the indexes. Always these indexes that show the increases in conflicts, increased violence, increased concentration of land and income on the hands of very few people. While at the same time, you have land grabbing increasing in the Amazon during the pandemics. So what does this show? What does this tell us? That even during the pandemics, there is a population that is been made more vulnerable, whose rights have in some way been grabbed, because the increase of land grabbing in the Amazon has been significant in the Amazon. There's something that is very wrong in all this. When you see these indexes, these numbers that show that a part of the society is managing to gain on top of the suffering of another parcel of the same society. This part of the society has been invisible throughout time. It's been maintained far from its own rights. And it is these people that say or that are responsible for development. So that is why when we hear the word development, even if it's followed by the word sustainable, what we think is of this economic development that excludes most of the population. That's not the same development we think of when we look at this section of the relationship between the traditional populations, the rubber farmer, the nuts farmers, uh, and the rest of the economic forces. What is this sustainable development and how does each of the segments think of it? And I am very sure, Ailton mentioned my father. Uh, I am, I feel very strongly that I knew my father from what people who were with him building these movements, thinking of the president, but looking at the future. My father did that very much. It was very much part of what he saw, and thought about a lot about bringing young people into this awareness and these fights. Chico Mendes had some qualities. I knew my father, of course, but his friends and brothers in the fight brought many other things for me. This fight of the rubber farmers in Acre and organized movements that worked all around the world, even here in Brazil. He brought out this fight, and the fight of the rubber farmers gained very distinction in because of all the work Chico Mendes did, because of the partnership he sought with the indigenous populations through the alliance of the peoples of the forest, their alliances with the academia. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to look for support wherever we can find it. And this support and these alliances need to transcend the frontiers or the borders of city and forest. The city today is was once a forest that was deforested to give rise to people's urban occupation as we see it today. But it still does have this connection, I'd say, with through the services and through the ecosystem provided by the forest. So there is no such thing as people who live in the forest defending the forest, because the forest is a living organism that provides life for those who live in it and for those who live in the cities. So alliances and partnerships have to come to rise from this idea that we are all sons and daughters of the same mother that feeds us with everything we need to live. So we do this work of connecting and building these partnerships at a local level, where we create partnerships with all the collectives and social environment organizations who are fighting, but we also create partnerships with the academia. And here we have a very important alliance that brings us visibility, brings visibility to the fight of those who are in the biomes.
And the questions of the biomes and the visibility that the Amazon receives, but We do not stop looking at the fragility of the Cerrado, of the Atlantic forest, and other biomes because they are biomes that uh, consist the whole of this inheritage Brazil has. So, talking about the Amazon here, there is this whole history that Ailton has mentioned, and all of the indexes and researches and studies. This is the most threatened biome all the time. And last year, we saw the fires in Pantanal that devastated large areas. So we have been facing these attacks and threats to all of the biomes, with highlights to what happened, uh, which are the murders of leaders who defend their territories. And areas like Pará, for example, the state, these are very fragile areas and they are threatened and under constant conflict. The state of Pará is very large and very rich, but there we have the worst threats to leaders and activists. And of course, it happens in the Amazon, in the state of Acre and Rondônia. And there's many factors that put the Amazon in this role of being being the bioma that has brings visibility to these conflicts and these death threats and all of these particularities that the biome has. The Amazon is a whole new planet inside a country with a lot of flora and fauna and a lot of distinguished geography. And this puts us, according to the CPT study, puts us in a position of the larger number of conflicts in a biome, because the population itself has to take care of their own safety, and that is happening during the pandemics. They are taking care of their own mass populations, and the land grabbers and the loggers, they are out there in the forest. They're taking our trees and they're killing. So there are so many factors that are not letting us sleep. And more, what we are doing is that we are trying to revert this. I think that the work with young people happens in this sense because, well, we say that the young people are the future of the country, but they are also the future of their own territory as well. And the young people, because they have more for having more access to technology, you see fight their fight, and it's just so beautiful to see how they challenge things. A lot of action and movement that are bringing this new look into the Amazon. And our work is to work with these young people in their own territory so that they understand their own role in their own land. And the 2030 agenda is in this context. It is within the sustainable objectives that are pursued in many fronts. It is so that Brazil will be able to take care of the indigenous lands and its natural heritage, we managed to revert this. But unfortunately, what we see is that we are going to the opposite direction. We are giving the gold to the robbers, and Brazil is working to move away to the sustainable development goals. And more, Brazil is close to the capital. It has always been looking into the Amazon. And this government is promoting this very open door to not fulfill these goals, but fulfilling other interest goals. So the concentration of capital and depredation and devastation of the Amazon and other biomes are there to fulfill great corporation profit. So to me, it all has some base, and it all has a curtain. Brazil has not managed to define its own principles, considering social functions, cultural functions, and social functions of the land, thinking of the land collectively. And more Brazil and the Brazilian government, it has structured itself and put its own structure to policies that go that say that are there to organize, but they actually go the other direction because they are created as an attempt to, for example, regulate passives, and but it actually puts this government into a position to be questioned concerning its own organization of territory. So I think it's around this, okay? This situation involving land conflict, and it happens because the government has not satisfactorily solved this territorial concern that we have. And I'm not just talking about land regularization, but I am talking about recognizing the role of each peoples collectively in this territory. And then we get to what we see today. If we have this scenario, the public power has not managed to protect these people and population. And I think what else, something else that is in the center of this discussion is that Brazil doesn't want to solve this question, and it's a question that has to be solved, and it's been around since the discovery, say so, of Brazil. The rich who want to retain all the rights and all the lands, the more they have, the more they want the count to have ownership of the land. But we understand that the government has the power to regulate this, but more and more they are giving them more and taking everything else from us. So this right for property that ends up increasing inequality and causing all the situations that you see now. I think I think that we have a lot of work to do, and it's all going to start in 2022, because we have to be aware of our own role in this and do it well in 2022, because we need to find someone who really represents our fight, who really represents us, and someone who is going to, in fact, defend our rights in the House of Representatives. If we consider that 2022 is when we are going to be able to consider something different, If we don't think of this now, we are not doing our job. We're not doing our homework. We need to raise awareness of how much we are responsible for this. We need to elect people who represent us. But if you don't, if you elect people who have their own personal interests coming before collective interests, we are doing this wrongly. So thank you, Angela. I think you have answered in your comment the question that I've received from Isabella Vieira regarding the letter that your father left to the youngsters in the future. How can we apply that now? Just to remember, it, he wrote to the youngsters to be ready in 200 and 120, 2120 actually. And I'd like to hear from you, Ailton. We are getting towards the end of our debate. I have a question from the audience regarding the international pressures and if those pressures can help Brazil. And do you think it's viable that other countries put some pressure in Brazil just to protect the Amazon? This question was asked by Ligia Vitória, Ailton. Yes, I think this question comes at a good time because Angela was mentioning the local, regional concerns and the political succession. She got me thinking the area of internal maneuver that we have when we think of the democracy. The question of democracy cannot be aside and out of a question of the questioning of our destiny. Now, we are facing the new order of capitalism that has been globally instituted. This is global, Angela. Even though we fight a lot, we see in Chile, we see in Zapata, we have a world that is articulated to take from us. It's not just an Amazon concern. It happens with water, for example. It happens with food. The question, just to be very clear, the question to Europe is, are the European countries who are the owners of it all willing to rethink this global order? We are going to some other discussion in the climate panel. Are we going to talk further? And the question on the development persists. When can we consider that Holland in April can consider involvement? How about getting involved with the global reality? Let's think of the planet. Let's think of Earth. The commitment is with Earth. If you think of a new world order, it should be established not only through capital. We have the possibility of continuing living with the Earth, with her, with she, with the planet. And probably we are going to receive some great questions from human beings, but they have to show interest and they have to listen to what the planet has to say. If we think we are going to solve this, but just in our heads with politics, we are definitely going to postpone the end of the world, but we are going to keep on stretching the cord, and it's going to be fragile with mitigation. If we think of damaging, mitigating the damage, we are going to find a solution. We need to establish the basis of this planet with new solutions, and we need to stop putting these on to the young generations under young generations' possibilities. It is poetic to attribute some responsibilities to further generations, but it is also cynical that we are living in this world today. And what is the generation going to do once we finally damage everything when we live? So there is a limit to it.
There is an objective limit. We won't get to 2122. If we wait to 2122 to celebrate something, we'd better review our plans. Climate change is going to devastate the planet with extreme disasters and catastrophes, with the earth opening up and burning up. If we wait for an ideal scenario to bring youngsters in to the fight, there's no such thing. The ideal time is now. We are all responsible for what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is not for sale. Naturalizing an idea of time and waiting for a century to educate people, it's a mistake. We don't have a century for anything anymore. We need to be more firm when we think of global issues. Capitalism only makes sense in an equation where we think globally and act locally. Since the 80s, this is something the environmentalists think of. You think of global reality and act locally. This is something we can do. We should mobilize the youngsters, the academia, but we need to understand, above all, that this work has to be done under global logic. The next climate conference, if what comes out of it is capitalism, that is very bad for our future. We need to think of engagement. We need to abolish development from any proposition. Development is opening the gates to let the cattle pass through. This is something we really don't want. Ailton, Angela, I really want to thank both of you for such a powerful debate. You have given us so many important teachings. You have raised our awareness to the need for immediate action. We will have fires pretty soon. We need to politically change the words they're using, as Ailton said. We need profound political changes in this that I think will happen in the next conference. And I think many people who are listening to us may be able to influence all this. I want to thank you all for spending your Sunday here with us in the conference. I would like to give the floor back to you very quickly for your closing words, and then we'll have a closing of this such a necessary conference organized by Science Post. So, Angela, Ailton, thank you again, and I would like to give you the floor for your closing words. Okay, last year we had the festival Young People of the Future, bringing together youngsters from over 20 countries and which talked about what they have been doing for the planet. And we were talking about a festival for young people, but highlighting these aspects because future is today. And for us to be able to celebrate a revolution that unified all countries around a single ideal and thought, this revolution needs to happen now. So there is no such thing as the next century or the next 20 years. What we need to do for the planet is now. We need to do it now. We have to tell people all the time that people need to join us in resisting and fighting for a possible future, a more embracing, welcoming, and fair future. My Sunday will be better after listening to you, Felipe, to Ailton, and I hope all of you have a happy Sunday too. I express my solidarity also to the more than 500,000 people who lost their loved ones in this pandemic. And we will get through it. We are getting through this, and we are looking at a brighter future, hoping for the fall of these fascists who are in power today. So a good Sunday to all of us. Ailton, wonderful. Great, Angela, that's it. Good Sunday to all of you, all who spent this time with us in this debate, talking about issues that raise great concern for all of us. This debate can make us, can bring us a more reflective Sunday, help us think of the ideas that brought us up to this 21st century. The idea of an earth with endless resources we could take out forever, and of the idea of having forever to correct the mistakes. There is no future for correcting mistakes, and we don't have the right to continue making these mistakes. We are making some huge, clear mistakes, transforming the oceans into sewer and throwing garbage in dead waters. The margins of the rivers are paying the price for what some regions of the country are doing. I don't want to see other rivers becoming sewers because of mining actions. We have to be critical, and we cannot continue talking about development. Development is an assault on nature. We have to think of engagement with life, with the rivers, with the forests, and the places we live in. And this implies global action from people from all over the globe, not only in the Atlantic forest, in the Cerrado. It is not only Brazil who's going through a terrible time socially and politically that has to be in the forefront of this fight. Europe has to be in it too. Those of you in Europe, do complain. We cannot be quiet. Great Sunday to all of you. Thank you, Ailton. Thank you, Angela. Again, I recommend the book Letters for the Good Life that have beautiful rights from Angela to her father, and a letter from Ailton for those who want to sing and dance for the heavens, for the skies. And I want to mention another singing by the Pataxó people, in Bahia. Bahia, the land of coconut and dendê. The water is sweet and I want to drink it too. We are going to dance and sing the catimbó to bring Bolsonaro tied up and Liana. And with that last words, I'm going to pass on the floor to the 2U group to do our closing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Boa tarde, pessoal! Que delícia encerrar esse papo maravilhoso, depois inclusive dessa bela canção, aí protagonizada pelo Felipe. Nós somos a Tuyo, a gente veio entregar um brilhinho pro seu domingo, todo mundo que está acompanhando Pour Le Brésil. Muito bacanas as discussões, estou muito contente. Todo dia peso enorme nos meus ombros. Tava achando que era de dormir errado. Todo dia peso enorme nas minhas costas. Tava achando que era de sentar de lado. Mas é você. Mas é você. Então o jeito é ir embora, pegar as coisas e ir embora, me despedir e ir embora, te abraçar e ir embora. Reclamei o dia inteiro de uma dor nos ossos. Achei que fosse algum lugar quebrado. Fiz compressa no pescoço pra ver se melhora. Talvez seja de tanto jogar deitado. Mas é você. Mas é você. Então o jeito é ir embora, pegar as coisas e ir embora, me despedir e ir embora, te abraçar e ir embora. Então o jeito é ir embora, pegar as coisas e ir embora, me despedir e ir embora, te abraçar e ir embora. Menti pra você quando disse que ia entender tudo que você tem pra dizer. Acontece que eu não me importo mais. Te avisar que o futuro já acabou e a gente é sobrevivente. Não precisa se assustar, eu caminho com você nesse inferno permanente. Eu cheguei pra te explicar que a vida é um emburrecer e a culpa é da gente.
Se você quiser ficar, eu vou te deixar aqui. Só posso olhar pra frente. Abre a porta, deixa ir. Abre a boca, semente. Vim aqui pra te avisar que o futuro já acabou e a gente é sobrevivente. Não precisa se assustar, eu caminho com você nesse inferno permanente. Eu cheguei pra te explicar que a vida é um emboecer e a culpa é da gente. Se você quiser ficar, eu vou te deixar aqui. Só posso olhar pra frente. Abre a porta, deixa ir. Abre a boca,
Muito obrigada por esse convite gostoso de passar esse domingo interessantíssimo com todo mundo que está aqui online acompanhando todas as riquíssimas discussões. Com essa a gente se despede, deixa vocês aí para desfrutar do domingo com bastante percepção, consciência e também um pouquinho de descanso, né?
Eu tive 5 minutos de sono. 5 minutos eu tive. 5 minutos de sono.
E sonhei que alimentava os faróis com toda sorte de horror na minha cabeça. Que sorte é óbvio com a mente todos os sinais. E a luz verde me deixou seguir. Eu pedi pra subir num caminhão. Tava cansada de andar por aí. Qualquer coisa me fez entender que se eu fechar os olhos,
eu vou sumir, 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 eu quero a parte boa sem a parte ruim, não ter que pensar em tudo, o mundo faz tão mal pra mim. Você aparece e vai embora. Toda noite a mesma história, nada mais importa agora. Memórias são só memórias. Ontem eu te vi, toda linda ali. Eu paralisado observei a noite cair. Ontem eu te vi, depois que dormi. Não sei te dizer como me fez sentir. Eu te vi, 5 minutos de sono. 5 minutos eu te vi, 5 minutos de sono. E sonhei que alimentava os faróis com toda sorte de horror na minha cabeça. Que sorte abre com a mente todos os sinais. E a luz verde me deixou seguir. E eu pedi pra subir num caminhão. Tava cansada de andar por aí. Qualquer coisa me fez entender que se eu fechar os olhos, eu vou sumir, 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 eu vou sumir. Eu te vi, 5 minutos de sono. 5 minutos eu te vi, 5 minutos de sono. Bom domingo, turma!